Awesome. Hi, everyone, and welcome again to the second episode of Experts Live India podcast. My name is Samir, and I'm the host and organizer of Experts Live conferences. Today, I have Saurabh and Stoyan with me, who are also hosting this podcast with me. Hey, guys.
Hey,
Hey guys.
Um, Cool. So today we are going to talk about something very interesting, right? It is something that all of us are benefiting from in one way or another. Maybe it is something that we have actively been benefited directly, or it is something that has been that we have been utilizing indirectly without realizing it, right? And
hmm
especially if you are in IT sector, then I think you unknowingly or unknowingly either have been using automation a lot or you've been benefiting from it a lot, right? Because as simple as putting like setting up an email rule saying like all these emails coming from say like a particular sender should go to a particular folder, right? That is an automation. You may not always realize it, but that is something that is happening for you in the background without any manual intervention. Every time an email comes, you don't go and look at the sender and then drag that email to your folder. No, so that is automation is eliminating all of those manual steps, right? So yeah, that is the topic for today, which is automation, and by extension of it we are also going to touch upon what orchestration is. Automation and orchestration may sound similar to some of the audiences, but there are some minor differences between automation and orchestration. We'll cover them in the upcoming discussion we'll have, and of course, what automation is, why do we use it, what are the good things about automation? There are there any bad things about automation even, right? So all of these good things we're going to talk about in the next, I don't know, 20-30 minutes. So let's just get straight into it.
Yep.
Awesome. So, who wants to go first? One who wants to define what automation is?
I would actually suggest if you guys are okay, just to introduce Saurabh um, shortly,
Sure.
because we had a short introduction with you, Sam, um,
Yeah.
on our first appearance. So I think it will be fair if we introduce our co-host today.
Absolutely.
Saurabh,
Yep.
Yeah.
can you
So,
please say a couple of words about you? What are you doing mainly? What are your motivation factors? And yeah, why are you here today?
Yeah, sure, sir. So, I am a senior software engineer currently working in multiple projects. Some of those are automation, mostly in cloud, Azure particularly, but I couple dabble with mobile development as well as orchestration, all those stuff, moving towards the Docker and the Kubernetes stuff, integrating into all those stuff together.
nice.
So,
Super
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. I
And
was going to say
guys,
all of that is
Saurabh
very
will be
trending.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Stan.
Saurabh will be our co-host in case me or Samir is actually not present or not able to lead the podcast. So Saurabh will support us throughout the whole
Yeah.
series,
The whole
so to say.
podcast series. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It will be fun
Uh,
ride actually.
and
Should be
before we
fun. Yeah.
start defining automation, guys, maybe it's important to mention that today we are going to talk mainly about automation in IT, right? Not
Yeah.
Yeah.
automation in general,
Absolutely.
because there are some important key differences when we are talking about automating mechanical and engineering processes
Yeah.
compared to
Absolutely.
IT. Yeah.
Yep. That's true. That's true.
Abs- Absolutely. So, again, same question. Who wants to jump onto the definition? What is automation?
Uh, So the basic definition of automation is actually um, it's the process when you're setting rules for different IT tasks, and when those rules are completed, those rules are actually completed upon some trigger or upon some machine process which is triggering those. So at the end, the whole interaction is done in an automated way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's true.
Maybe you can give a better a better explanation of the whole thing.
To me, automations are like the task that the human used to do, but we are now at like making machine do it automatically based on, like you said, trigger or some event that happened eventually, so that a person or software engineer can focus on tasks that is important rather than chore that he has to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, basically, again, automation is something that automatically happens in layman terms, right? So you don't have to manually do a set of things for something to happen, right? So you can set, like Stoyan said, you can set up rules that if something happens, some trigger happens, then go ahead and perform this series of tasks, and this is the end result that will come out of it without any manual intervention, right? Um, so, in IT, what do you guys think? So, where do we, in IT in particular, where do we use automation?
I would say throughout the whole scope of IT.
Everywhere. Yeah,
You gave a nice example yourself, which is, let's say, a very basic example for automation, just setting up rules in Outlook. So
exactly.
everybody can do it. So everybody does it, and this is really a basic
Yeah,
thing. And we can also automate a lot complexer stuff, more complex processes, software, also different ITSM processes. There are lots of examples for this.
Yeah, true. Like in software, you can say like CI/CD is a type of automation where you just push the code and the server at the back end just runs throughout your code, tests and deploys your application to the server what you want to do it. So if you say the CI/CD pipelines or all those stuff boil down to the automation part itself. Or there is another example of automating the scripts that you can deploy to cloud, say. So we are using almost everywhere, whether you know it intentionally or don't know it. Uh, it's going everywhere.
yeah,
I like the expression whether we realize it or not, because if you just want to go on a website and purchase some item, there is a lot of automation what that happens in the background. You give
yeah,
your
yeah,
order, you click on a button, then this enters most probably a record in some table. Then a process picks it up. Then somebody needs to get a notification that it needs to be packaged, it needs to be prepared for shipping. Then somebody needs to drop it. And there are a lot of automated steps throughout the process.
Yeah, true,
yeah.
true.
Absolutely. So I think actually, we in amongst the three of us, I think Stoyan, you and I think we are more on the IT admin side of things. We don't code a lot. We do some PowerShell scripting occasionally. But of course, in IT admin section also, I think we see a lot of things are automated, even starting from the smallest things like starting, say, maybe like starting a service, for example, right? You can just run a code, PowerShell, you can write in PowerShell, start service, give the name of your service, and it will automatically start for you, right? And then Saurabh, we also have Saurabh here, who is the actual code writer, the developer. And I think automation is also like he very, rightly gave an example about CI/CD and DevOps, all those processes in the backgrounds. They are also very much automated today, right? So you just push the code. There's a lot of steps that goes. So there might be an approval. So take GitHub for example, right? So if you want to automate that process, you can just push the code. There might be some automatic approvals, first level approval, second level approval. Maybe there might be a third level manual approval somewhere. And I think that is also a good thing about automation, is that you can control it, right? So you can control the flow of things. You don't necessarily. So can you automate anything? Maybe yes, maybe not, but certainly don't want to automate anything, everything, so to say, right? Because there are some things that you may want to have under your control that have to be processed in the human mind, in the human brain, so that we can, strategically think about those things and, make the decisions accordingly. So that is where automation is also very flexible in that way, is that you can control what part of a process you want to automate and what you want to keep to human intellect, I think, right?
Yeah.
That's really the case. Guys, I'm curious. May I ask a question? What are the five things you have automated? The last five things you have automated. And since we are all in IT, I think I'm just very curious because some you mentioned me and you, we are more on the admin side, and Saurabh is more on the software development side, where automation looks a bit different.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, eager to understand the last five tasks you have automated, or three. Let's go with three to be easy.
I was gonna say, five is a lot. Maybe we could come down to two or three, maybe. Yeah.
um, Up to my mind, like at the top of my head, I recently automated whole build system. So when I push the code, if the infrastructure is available at Azure side, it will just idempotent, means if it is exist presently, it will just move on. If it is not, it will try to build it up with storage account, with application registration and all those stuff, and push the data to the cloud, run the CI/CD pipeline through it, and then it will deploy it to app registration basically. So what happens
Okay.
is that we reduce whole process from getting from 2 or 3 days to around 20 to 25 minutes at most, depending upon latency of the application. So it removes lot of burden, lot of errors that might be happening. You might not call automation as per se, but we like added a test automation stuff where machine is basically doing the automation of the code rather than some third party tester doing it, using Google APIs and Google AI machines actually. So that was fun. That was interesting part we did, and it reduced a lot of code. We found a lot of bugs that we not have found if it is done by a user or something like that. So that was
That
fun
is a
part.
good
Yeah.
example. That's a great example, actually.
And some you,
I was just thinking. So the automation I do is mostly writing scripts, PowerShell scripts, right?
yeah.
So recently I've been using a lot of. So I focus a lot on Azure Stack HCI side of things nowadays, and deploying clusters and everything. So there's a bunch of things that you have to do to set up a cluster, and then configure the cluster, and then configure monitoring, set up all the metrics and all that stuff, right? Um, so I actually put together a very small, so I won't go since it is the latest thing that I've done, it's not a lot, but I've put a very small code together that does a little pre-check for me. It goes and checks a bunch of things, check. And then if all is green, then I go ahead and, deploy something or whatever. So that actually, again, that saves a lot of time, right? Because if I did not have anything to check it for me, I would have to go and individually check each and everything. That might take me like 100, 200 clicks, maybe. I don't know. But with the script, I just go ahead, paste it, and hit enter, and it's all done.
Yeah.
Actually, it does not have to be complex so that you can call it automation, right? Like the
Yeah.
example Saurabh gave, I think his project and the stuff he does actually contains so many small automation steps,
Yeah.
that you can, yeah. For me, also, this week, I've done like basic examples. Guys, I'm doing a lot of monitoring. So a customer called me yesterday and said, I have a service on my machine which is repeatedly just crashing. So can you please not only monitor it, but also start it in an automatic way? So
Mhm.
that's
Right.
what I did yesterday. And the day before that, automated, I wrote a small PowerShell script which checks, for example, the password expiration for service accounts. So this is also
Right.
a way of automating things. What I'm curious to understand, guys, what do you think? What are the benefits, the main benefits of automation? Why people do automate stuff?
That is
Uh,
a good question.
Yeah, it is. There are two sides of it actually, as per my perspective. One is from personal or the guy who's doing it. That may be just saving the time, not doing the repetitive task altogether. Or there are some tasks like we don't want to do it, like testing as per se, that like important but don't have to do by the person itself. And there are enterprise application like part of it, like it saves the money, it reduces the cost of everything from personal to the application development. It becomes more robust and gives the satisfactory product overall rather than doing like every step manually. What do you think, Samir?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I was gonna say to what you said is that the first reason is personal. I couldn't agree more because basically, in my opinion, I do a lot of automation because simply because I'm lazy. I don't want to click on 100 different things, and I don't want to spend a lot of my time doing the same things over and over again, like you said, the repetitive tasks. I don't want to waste my time. I would rather go watch a Netflix movie rather than doing the same thing over and over again, right? Yeah, so that again, so you said a very, you put it very nicely actually. So there are two aspects of it, like the personal one and the company aspect, let's say, right? The company one being on a much larger level. So on a company level, I think we can call it, we can dabble. I think we can talk a little about orchestration now. So on personal level, you could be doing some automation, like Stoyan said, a lot of monitoring. So Stoyan has more experience with other tools as well, but I personally I have experience with some monitoring tools. And I think almost all tools to nowadays come with some ability to automate tasks. So I've been working on SCOM Operations Manager a lot. So there is actually a separate tab that goes. So when something fires, say for example, an alert comes, there's actually some action that you can set. Say for example, a service is down, so instead of waiting for an admin to notice that alert and take an action and go and start that service manually, what the tool itself, what it will do is it just go ahead and trigger some workflow, maybe run a PowerShell script in the background. Okay, I've got this alert in response, run this script, and automatically the service gets started, right? What that has done, that has reduced the admin's overhead to fix everything by himself. Second, it has saved a lot of time. Third, maybe if there is any business impact that might be happening due to the service not being available, so you're also saving a lot of money, right? So there's a lot of things that you're doing just by automating something very personal, something very small. And then you go into orchestration, which is basically like weaving together a lot of smaller automation tasks. So you starting from monitoring or provisioning of resources, then monitoring, then maybe ticketing tool ITSM, then you've got some automation there. And so if you've got a workflow that goes through all of these stages together without any manual intervention, that is basically orchestration, right?
You just
Yeah.
explained the difference, the main difference between automation and orchestration, right? So
Yeah.
automation is just take a single task and automate it so that it happens automatically. But orchestration is more like the whole bunch of tasks which are following one another, and all the way are automated all the way until the end. What you have mentioned previously, that you're automating tasks because you're lazy, I can tell you why I'm doing it mostly. I'm also sometimes lazy too, but the main reason for me, often because I want to get things done in a quick way and in an efficient way. I'm doing really small errors like forgetting something or doing typos when I'm typing code or doing something. And for me, automating the whole stuff is really helpful because it eliminates the human factor.
Yeah,
When I type quickly, I'm not that keen on typing quickly, but when I do it, I do often mistakes. And when I automate things, of course, this is the best way to avoid those mistakes. And
yeah,
that's what's really interesting for me. Um, we have touched the positive factor of the site. Guys, do you think that automation or orchestration also is affecting the jobs on the market? So usually you automate tasks, and that means this it happens in an automated way, so you don't need a human interaction. Does
yeah.
this lead to, let's say, job loss, for example? Would
Uh,
that,
no, actually, it's not like it's reducing the job overall. It's changing the nature of the job. So if you're change like used to do a task XYZ and that automation taking care of XYZ, you are free to do ABC now. So you are ready to move on to bigger picture and what is important rather than focusing on what is like trivial task to do. So that's the main part. People might think it is just like taking away their job, but the fact is they are just transforming into the task that are important to do it. That's
Yeah,
my take actually.
yeah, that's very
I
well
very
said,
much like.
actually. Yeah,
Yes,
very well
I
said.
very much
I was
like
gonna
this
say,
explanation. Sorry,
yeah,
Sam.
I was,
Go ahead.
no, no, I was just going to say, see, I've forgotten already. I was just gonna say, yeah. So automating some trivial tasks, like Saurabh was saying, trivial tasks, like say, for example, what is an example of a very insignificant task? Password reset, maybe, right? Let's say password reset. It's a very brainless kind of repetitive task that nobody wants to do. So what you can do is you can automate those tasks. A ticket comes, you can write, say, maybe, so I'm a partial guy, so everything, whenever I think of automation, PowerShell and scripting comes to my mind. But of course there are other ways to doing automation as well. But say, for example, in context of a PowerShell script, so if a user raises a ticket saying that, okay, I can't access my account, or I need my password changed, or whatever, then what you can do is you can write a script or a workflow, let's say, that goes ahead, picks the name of the user, finds that name in the Active Directory, goes ahead and just resets the password by itself. And so the admin, or whoever, the support engineer who is where, sitting there, doesn't have to do this by themselves, right, manually. So instead, what the same engineer can do is, now they can think of some better things, some things that human brain requires its power to, to enable, basically, right? So not everything, like I previously said, not everything has to be not everything has to be automated. There are some things that are better left to the human decision, human judgment. So what the human can do is can actually go and strategize, maybe solve some other bigger problems, rather than just getting stuck and spending their days on password resets and this, service restarts and whatever.
That's really the case, and I can give you an example from the country I live in. I think actually this is worldwide that in IT there is a big, let's say, gap for experienced engineers and IT personnel in general. So um, specifically in IT, we don't need to be afraid that somebody is going to lose his job or her job, because actually there are so many areas where you can jump in, and there is so the gap for experienced people is so big that you always find a job in IT.
Right.
So for me also personally, I don't feel when I'm automating stuff, I don't feel that I'm stealing the job of somebody. Uh, Just the opposite. Actually, I feel I'm helping the company or my customer to do things better, quicker, without errors, and just efficient.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Guys, I'm curious to see to understand what are the tools that you use for automation or also orchestration, or what tools do you know, or also frameworks in.
Oh, I do use for Azure, particularly ARM. We do use Ansible for a couple of like Azure as well as on-site deployment. Basically, we have a CI/CD pipeline. Like I said, we have like use Puppet and Terraform in limited capacity. So like it's basically all those are automation with different engines together. Each have like different pros and cons basically for everything. Like Ansible is very
Right.
versatile, very flexible to do it. Terraform, on the other hand, is very fast. It's compiled and it's almost you can use it everywhere without any downtime at all. Like most of the automation tool I have used are like idempotent. Like they will just move on if it already exists. So that helps a lot actually. In
Yeah.
orchestration part, I mainly used Ansible Tower or AWS Tower, which are basically downstream of Ansible, which basically orchestrate all the Ansible jobs and all those stuff together. That's interesting part. What about you,
Yeah.
Samir?
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I am mostly the PowerShell guy. So mostly all the automation I do is on personal level actually. Um, Actually, so not now as much as I used to do when I was a monitoring admin. Like I was saying, monitoring is somewhere that you can use automation a lot because, like I was saying, there's a lot of different kinds of errors, and a lot of them are repetitive. Um, so instead of going to do the same thing over and over again, I have a small script and I would just trigger every time an alert was fired, and it will go just fix it for me. Now I am more into evangelist stuff, so I don't get to use a lot of automation, or I don't really get to build a lot of automation myself. But every time I get a chance, definitely the first thing that comes to my mind is to reduce my efforts and time that I have spent on doing this thing. So PowerShell is my favorite go-to tool. Then there's also built-in automation capabilities in a lot of tools nowadays, like I was saying. Scom or Puppet or Chef or Terraform, Azure automation is there, right? So you don't necessarily have to explicitly go and buy an automation tool to do your automation. You can actually do automation in whatever that you've already bought. So you may not realize, but you can do a lot of automation that way also.
Yeah.
Even writing a small PowerShell script and starting in like in the form of a scheduled task is a way of automating things,
A
and it's
scheduled
done
task, yeah, a Windows scheduled task. As simple
absolutely.
as that. That is yeah,
Yeah, right,
that is automation again.
right.
So Stoyan, you actually also use, I know you use system center orchestration a lot.
I have
Orchestrator,
used it
sorry.
in the past. I have used it in the past a lot, and not only the orchestrator, but also the service management automation, where you just prepare scripts or write scripts, and then you use the SMA to start those scripts, to schedule them, to define variables, and different other options. And also, like you mentioned, SCOM. I'm doing monitoring, so System Center Operations Manager has a lot of automation potential there. Um,
Yeah.
Almost each alert that comes because of some issue can lead through a recovery task to an automated response of the system. The example you gave is also very nice, starting a service which is not running for some reason. And there are lots of similar examples, but orchestrator is being, I think, being being developed by Microsoft still. There are some new stuff there. It's very interesting too because it's a graphical user interface where you take those activities, they are called activities, and you drag them and drop them into your working pane, and you can drag and drop different activities in order to cover the whole automation or whole orchestration of the process you're trying to manage. So, for
Oh,
example, get me this user, then go and enter it in Active Directory, then go ahead and send notification to somebody, then maybe go ahead log in into Azure Automation and do stuff there. It's really complex. And SMA, the other tool I have worked with is, like I said, you just write PowerShell code, and with this tool, you manage it through an interface, how it starts, how it behaves, how it interacts, the so-called workbooks. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Awesome, cool.
yeah,
Um,
that's true. Actually, Microsoft is dabbling more in automation these days,
yeah,
particularly cloud side, particularly like Logic apps, Power Automate, and all those
hmm,
stuff. They are trying to move towards AI and automation stuff altogether.
yeah. So that is one of the things that I think Stoy and Saurabh will cover in detail in upcoming episodes is automation in Azure in particular. Like see Azure
Yep.
automation. What are the ways of doing automation in Azure in particular? I think all three of us are like in some capacity are familiar with how Azure works and how you can make it easier, right? So we can definitely go and dedicate an entire episode for Azure automation.
Right, and we can make it even more interesting and touch a bit something which Saurabh mentioned, the so-called CI/CD pipeline and DevOps in general,
Right.
because we don't have time to cover this now, but it's important part of automation and orchestration, like Saurabh said. So I think we could also dedicate a couple of minutes to DevOps next time, right,
Yeah,
guys?
sure. Yep. Sound good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so we've talked about all the good things about automation, but there's I just want to take a minute to talk about. Do you think there's any bad side to automation? Um, because while I was doing some research in one of the articles, I read something very interesting that actually caught my attention. Um, so they listed a couple of reasons for why automation can be bad, or where you may want to be cautious while doing automation. And one of them was inflexibility to change. That got me thinking. Actually, that is actually quite true because, like we said, you may have an orchestrator, orchestrated the whole process from end to end, but if you want to do something, if you want to pinch something out of the equation and replace it with something else, maybe automation may not have the intelligence to do it automatically, right? So that is where you so if you want to, if you, or for example, if you have changed something, or some admin somewhere in the whole process has changed some minute detail, automation does not know about it. It's not intelligent enough to know, so it's just gonna do what it's made to do, and just run through the whole process as it is. It is not going to account for the change that was made, right? So this in turn, I think, also translates into increased consequences of errors, right? So if it is a very production heavy, maybe let's say business critical workload, and you have changed some parameter into the process somewhere, but the automation is has not been adjusted to take that into account, then it's just gonna just blaze through the whole process as it would do for normally, and then it might result in something that is not expected by you, right? So that was something I thought that was a very interesting read in one of the articles I read actually.
That sounds
Yeah.
exactly true, yes.
Uh, that's interesting that you mentioned actually. I have similar issues like a couple of years back when we started automating stuff. The whole automation part were monolithic. So every logic that needs to be built were in a like single script that is so inflexible that something like even change in something breaks every part of it. So what I learned basically is like it has to be like micro stuff that you could combine all together, create a permutation of all automation together to create a bigger picture. So if you don't have a kind of orchestrator, automation is kind of useless, to be frank. Because at some point, if someone from the company or the guy who created that automation goes away from the company, uh, it is going to break for sure at some point in the
Yeah,
future. It has
absolutely.
to, the automation has to fail gracefully rather than abruptly. That's the
Well
important part.
said. Well said.
Proper words, the proper words, and a good example in regards to this from me, a real life example. A customer was testing his PowerShell skills within Active Directory,
Mhm.
and the same customer started a script which creates objects in Active Directory.
Oh.
And the problem was he forgot to turn it off, and this was Friday, and he went to get a rest for the weekend. And as he came back, his script has created so many test users that the IDs for the objects within Active Directory were already depleted, and the whole Active Directory has been blocked, so to say. There was, of course,
Yeah.
a solution for this, but it's a nice example of what Saurabh said regarding automation. So
Yep.
use it
Yeah.
wisely and use it carefully.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
As soon as you said that the user that your colleague had a script to create objects in AD, I was like, I know where this is going. Because that is absolutely is again. So you have to be very careful about triggering something and then shutting it off when you are done as well, right? So that also brings me. That reminds me of something that we used to do in Squid of my previous employers. Like, so we were using some virtual machines, not always, but sometimes if we had something to do, something to test, we'd go spin up some virtual machines in Azure. But then there was always a rule that would turn everything off in like starting of a weekend, like Friday night, everything should be will be turned off by automatically by Azure itself. So there's no worry about keeping something running and keep your charges piling up. So yeah, that was a good example again. Um, awesome. I think we have touched upon everything that we wanted to talk about today. So we've been talking about this automation very generically, of course. In the next upcoming episodes, maybe we will dive more into what Azure automation is, or what Terraform is, maybe, or Chef Puppet, maybe even automation using PowerShell,
And DevOps,
a
right? CI/CD.
DevOps, CI/CD,
Yep.
of course. Yeah. So we will go and talk about them individually. So on a closing note, do you want to say something about in a word, or in a sentence, do you want to say something about automation or orchestration?
I just want to say that I had a super cool, interesting discussion with you guys regarding automation, and was very curious to see the point of view of Saurabh because it's a bit
Yeah.
different from ours. So
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, that's the point of
That's true.
getting a guest that is, that has different experiences than ours.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and finish this by saying that I think so. Coming back to, is automation a threat to jobs? I think automation is more like, say, a knife, right? So you can use it to cut vegetables. You can use it, to stab someone. It depends on how you're using the knife, right? So it's not really the knife's fault. If you stab someone, then that's the problem of the user, not the tool, right? So use automation as a tool, not as a weapon. So use it in complementary to whatever job that you've been doing. Just enhance the experience of the users. Maybe save some time for yourself, maybe also for the users, and save some money for your organization and so on. Right. So is IT automation a threat? Maybe yes, yes, maybe no, but it depends on the user, I think. Right.
Yeah, from me, like just to extend Samir's analogy, just because you have knife doesn't mean you have to cut it. Actually, you have to think to just because you can automate it, you shouldn't automate it all the time. there is a fine difference between when you should automate it and when you should not. So that's as per your discretion, to be frank, and then enjoy automation.
Awesome,
Right.
cool. Yeah, do enjoy automation because you have been enjoying it whether or not you realize it. So,
Yes,
at least now,
definitely.
if you listen to this episode, maybe you will have some newfound respect or appreciation for the automation in your life going forward. Cool. Thanks, Toyan. Thanks a lot, Saurabh. Thanks, all of you, for your time. And we'll meet again next time.
Yep.
See you
Thank
next
you.
time,
Cheers,
guys. Thank
guys.
you.
Bye bye.
Cheers.
Bye.